So there's been a lot of talk lately about the honey badger. My views on this. Number one, if you don't want to be on the ATF's radar, don't put out a promotional video of some guy all kitted out running through the woods, firing a honey badger from the shoulder like it's a rifle when it's intended to be shot as a pistol. I've seen this promotional video a couple years ago. I've searched for it on the net and it's miraculously disappeared from what I can tell as of right now. The bigger problem is that you have organizations like the GOA going after the ATF and the ATF's policies, or whether or not they have the authority to create such policies. And I sorry about the dog. I spoke about this before. The federal government as a whole, whether it's the ATF, the president, or even Congress, don't have the authority to create national sweeping laws. Article 1, Section 8 is very clear about this. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 is the clearest about it, especially when you combine that with the 10th Amendment. We are 50 sovereign states. Our states can create our own laws as long as those laws don't violate the rights of any individual in the country. The federal government's role is to basically be a mediator in between the states. It's not to rule over the states. And the anti-federalists were worried that without a Bill of Rights, that eventually all power in the country would be consolidated into the federal government. The federal government would rule over the people, which would put us right back to where we were before the revolution. The founders eventually, I guess, seen it the same way, and they created the Bill of Rights 4 years later. We're at a pivotal point in this country. The ball is rolling to where the federal government believes it can do whatever it wants, and it rules over the country. You hear this, I've heard my whole life, federal law trumps state law. No, it does not. The feds only have jurisdiction, including Congress, over lands that have been legally purchased from the many states by the federal government. And even then, those lands had to be purchased for very specific reasons. For example, they can't just walk up and circle a bunch of land on a map and say, oh, that's a national park, we own it. That's unconstitutional. So my problem with the GOA themselves, because it was asked by Jared yesterday in his video, if you're a member of my channel, not a member of Guns and Gadgets, or not a member of GOA, I don't know why. Well, that's why. Because they're not going after the core problem here. They're going after a secondary problem. The secondary problem is the ATF is creating policy and treating it as law, enforcing it as law. The core problem is that the federal government as a whole doesn't have the jurisdiction to be creating laws that can be enforced within the states. The problem is ignorance, though. A lot of people don't know this. So it was allowed to happen at one time, and then, I've used the analogy of my kid sticking their hand in the cookie jar. If I let Silas put his hand in the cookie jar and get a cookie out before dinner tonight, and then tomorrow might be 2 cookies. The next day it's going to be 2 cookies plus a cookie an hour before, and then by the end of the month he's going to be eating cookies all day long. It's what we allow them to get away with. They've now created laws that have made it illegal, quote unquote, for us to enforce our Constitution. If you enforce our laws against them, you're labeled a criminal. They come at your house and give you the 5 a.m. wake-up call. They kill your dog if you have one. And then they try to kill you. And if they don't kill you, they mangle you, maim you. Then they hide you until the rest of the people forget about you. It's people don't believe in indoctrination, and they don't believe in conditioning. And I believe in conditioning to the fullest of it. It's one of the reasons why we no longer have communities that are tight knit. If you knew your neighbor was a moral individual, when you woke up at 5 a.m. to the thugs kicking their door in, you would probably start fighting without question. Now you just kind of look out there and like, huh, wonder what Mary did. I thought she was a good person. So, but we need to start educating people about the truth. I'm going to leave the link to the Anti-Federalist audiobook from YouTube. It's on YouTube, and also the Federalist Papers, and also the Constitution. What did I say first? And the Anti-Federalist, the Federalist, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the Federalist Papers, and the Constitution. I'm going to leave links to all three in the description. I will try to remember to leave them in the pinned comment. I suggest that you listen to them and listen to them multiple times. They give, once you understand them, it gives you a better view of what the intent was. The intent boiled down, in my mind, if I had to describe the intent of the founders, is that I'm going to stay over here and do what I do, and you're going to stay over there and do what you do. We're not going to bother each other. The federal government's going to be over there in the corner somewhere, not bothering us, doing their duty to the people, which is to just protect our rights through the few powers that we've given them. You know, even our presidents now have assumed powers they don't have through like executive orders. We had just had a president, that all these so-called patriots support, through executive action, banned a firearm accessory, a piece of plastic. He first directed the ATF to change their opinion about it after they had given multiple opinions about it, and then he banned it through executive action. That's not how this country is supposed to work. So the big question becomes, what do we do? How do we fix this? There's two ways. Number one, we do nothing, and in 100 years we'll be known as the Federalist Socialist State of America. Number two, we come together, we agree to a foundational goal, and then we do whatever must be done to get to that goal. I don't condone violence. I don't want to see anybody harmed, ever. I never want to see anybody's property destroyed in any way. One thing that people understand, whether it be government or society, is violence, force. A law that's not backed by force isn't a law at all, because people don't follow it. Good men don't need laws. Bad men don't care about laws. It's just a way to prosecute them. And then the state makes more money off of them. That's all that's about. If it was really about justice, take an example of my son and his killer. If it was about justice, they would lock me in a room with him. But it's not about justice. It's about money, because he represents money to the state. But it's a scary topic, and what's scary about it is the ignorance, and how many people are actually ignorant of their own rights, of our founding documents that were written to represent them. The Constitution is our law, like I said, against our government. Here's our laws in order in exchange for our consent to be governed. If you do not adhere to these laws, we do not consent to being governed by you. Now, I have withdrawn my consent. What does that mean? It means that nothing that they do affects me. Now, I don't own a honey badger. If I did own a honey badger, I'd be throwing a big finger up to the federal government and saying, you have no jurisdiction to come into Ohio to say that I cannot own this, or that I have to register it as an SBR. The funny question is, though, and this just shows you the stupidity of it. Let's just say there was 3,000 honey badgers floating around society today, which I don't know what the number is. I haven't looked. by creating them SBRs and putting tax stamps on them, which cost the people more money. Does that stop the person that had evil intent from committing an evil act with that firearm? No. If they were going to commit the evil act, they were going to do it regardless of whether it got a tax stamp or not. They're not going to say, "Ooh, I spent $200 on this. I better not. That's just a waste of $200 if I go commit some evil act." They don't give a shit. The whole NFA thing it's totally bullshit from start to finish. If the NFA was about Snickers bars, it would still be unconstitutional because Congress doesn't have the authority they don't have the jurisdiction to create a law that can be enforced within the states. That's why we have our state legislatures. We are 50 sovereign states who created a federal government as a mediator. They have other powers, of course, like to protect our rights through the creation of the military through the Navy, certain laws. The biggest part that they were supposed to play in the people and society is through the Supreme Court. If a state was to create a law that was unconstitutional, the Supreme Court would come in and rule for the people, say it was unconstitutional, the law was void. Marbury versus Madison made it very clear. Any law that is repugnant to the Constitution in itself is null and void. Laws like that should be resisted at all costs. So now the question becomes, what does that cost? Your freedom, your life. That's the cost. I've come to the realization that my life is meaningless in the big scheme of things. And when I say that, I don't mean that my life is meaningless to my kids. 100 years from now, nobody's going to remember who I am. Maybe some, my great grandkids. They may have heard about me. Other than that, it's meaningless. My life's meaningless. But if I can do something to ensure my kids have rights, giving up that meaningless life would be nothing. I wouldn't think twice about it. I've said it publicly 100 times. If I have to volunteer to be the first one to die, to have you all behind me fighting, I'll raise my hand. I'll take that position. So we need to come together. We need to form a plan of action to protect ourselves, not to be on the offensive to hurt other people. It's not about harming people or this boogaloo thing. It's about how do we save our freedom, our liberty, our rights. That's what it's about. And just educate people. Like I said, I won't leave the links. Please listen to them. And they're the way they're worded. They're worded in a way that they spoke at the time, which was a different manner of English. They use a lot of the same words, but you're gonna have to go back and rewind, things 2 and 3 times to understand they're trying to say. Get a dictionary out, not a new dictionary, and don't Google it for God's sakes. Go find a pre-1960s dictionary from your public library. Definitions have been changed to suit the socialist agenda over time. I've proven this before. We can go back on that another time if you all would like. But again, the federal government has no jurisdiction whatsoever to create law over the states or national sweeping laws. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. The 10th Amendment on top of that. So you guys have a good day. Listen to them. Listen to them while you're driving down the road, while you're doing the dishes, while you're cleaning the house. Spend your time that you watch YouTube, watching it and just listening to it, because there's nothing really to watch. It's just an audio book. But just take the time. Please take the time, and then educate others. Let other people know. I have spoken directly with Kiddoboy32 through email. I have spoken directly with Jared from Guns and Gadgets through email. I have spoken directly with Brian from High Impact Logs through email. These people have reach. They can make a difference. I've verifiably showed them the truth, yet they still don't tell people the truth. They stick with this, Congress can do whatever it wants, and it can't. If it could have, like I said, there was no point for the revolution. We'd have been right back to where we were from the second that the Constitution was signed. We'd have been right back to where we were before the revolution, because now you have a small, not exactly back, but pretty much back, because now you have a small group of people that hold all the power, that can do whatever they want, and the people have no recourse because they've made our recourse illegal. And then they call you a criminal and they jail you, or kill your dog, like I said, or you, or maim you, or hide you away until everybody forgets about you. What's going on with the Duncan Lemp case? Anybody heard anything about that? How about Kyle Rittenhouse? Anybody heard anything about that? No. And you won't. Mainstream media don't want you to hear about it, because the 6 families that own mainstream media have an agenda, and it's not one that promotes freedom. So have a good day, guys. A lot to think about, a lot to listen to. Those audiobooks are hours and hours long, but listen to them. It'll make you a better person. It'll definitely make you a better individual who's seeking freedom.